It's another reason why God's exiling man from the garden was actually mercy. God put man at a distance from himself for his own protection. This language is also used, by the way, in Leviticus 26. When we hear all about the exile, we're told that God will walk against those who walk against him. So when God is coming, that can be blessing or it can be cursed.
The car driving the wrong direction on a one-way street. You got to turn the car around through his grace to be in flow with what God is doing. If you're not, then you're in opposition, you're in wrath. And so you're going to sort of exile yourself instead of being, in some sort of collision.
If you're walking against God, then that's a curse. If you're walking with God, then you're riding out together to fulfill the same purpose together. For example, Israel's covenant is renewed when Moses sees God walking in front of him, and then Moses' face starts shining because he sees the way in which God is walking. It's why the glory of God leads Israel through the wilderness. So God is going in a particular direction. Then when Israel sees God moving, they get up and they move in that same direction. It's why the fall happens when God in Genesis 3 is walking in the garden, and the man and the woman, they turn the other way. They move away. They want to run away from God. And then God, of course, sends them into exile. And that this is an interesting point. I might have made it here before, that the exile is obviously the natural consequence for this, because when God showed up, they turned and they ran away. So, of course, they're just being sent out. He's like, okay, if you want to run away, then you're free. You can walk right out of the garden.
It's a good way, because we're going to be getting into that word sort of wrath. Some Bible translations will say children of wrath.
Yeah.
And when you talk about exile, which is a huge word in the Old Testament, right? I mean, Adam and Eve are exiled. Israel is exiled. And when you combine that with the word wrath, it's like we have been exiled or sort of like cast out from God's community because of our own decisions. But when we try to reconcile, if we haven't received his grace to be reordered.
Yeah.
One person kind of described it as the car driving the wrong direction on a one-way street. You got to turn the car around through his grace to be in flow with what God is doing. If you're not, then you're in opposition, you're in wrath. And so you're going to sort of exile yourself instead of being, in some sort of collision.
This is, if you're walking against God, God is really heavy. The word glory in the Old Testament is often made a pun on with the word heavy. You don't want to walk against God because he's so heavy. He's got so much being. He's going to roll right over you. And so we have a tendency to run the other direction. It's another reason, by the way, why God's exiling man from the garden was actually mercy. God put man at a distance from himself for his own protection. This language is also used, by the way, in Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26, when we hear all about the exile, we're told that God will walk against those who walk against him. So when God is coming, that can be blessing or it can be curse. If you're walking against God, then that's a curse. If you're walking with God, then you're riding out together to fulfill the same purpose together.
By the way, St. Irenaeus, church father, and C.S. Lewis, obviously modern writer, use the exact same language and imagery for exile, that it's sort of a mercy of God, a type of quarantine, so that you're not experiencing the worst outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see more instances of this imagery in Genesis. Enoch and Noah, they're both said to walk with God. Abraham is told to walk before me and be perfect. And all of these texts are linked to the notion of inheritance. By walking with God, by walking in God, we share in his life and his glory, and thus we inherit the world which belongs to him by nature. So if we're inside God, then what belongs to God by nature, because he's the creator and sustainer of it all, also comes to belong to us.
So you're either in communion with the Trinity and the Spirit, which my Greek professor said Ephesians 1 is probably one of the most Trinitarian passages you can find in the whole New Testament.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or you can be in communion with the prince, the power of the air, and the fleshly desires.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way that you can just avoid that dichotomy. It's built into the world as it exists. So Ephesians 1 describes the movement of the dead according to the age of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air. These are all exegeses of according to the flesh, among whom, Paul says, we all once lived in the passion of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the flesh and the mind. So notice how the idea of the flesh is linked with the operation of the devil. He works through the flesh in order to inflict suffering on us and on the world. So Paul describes here the corruption of the whole human person. Through the working of the prince of the air, we carry out the desires of our flesh. And that produces not only consequences for the body, but also for the mind. That word again is used in Ephesians 4:18, which describes how the unbeliever is darkened in their mind, alienated from the life of God. Being separated from the life of God, which is the principle of all life and reality, means that we are dead. Life from God goes from the Spirit of God to our spirits, to our minds, and to our bodies. Separating us from God collapses this order. Our bodies turn towards the ground and they pull everything else down with it. So think of the image of Nebuchadnezzar, who's standing on the rooftop of his palace. So he's up here, and then he's prideful, and he goes down. He goes down on all fours. His head goes down. He's on all fours like a beast. The gravitational pull of the world, separated from the Spirit of God, makes even the mind a fleshly mind. So this is, think of God in this context. Something like the Spirit of God is something like helium, right? It goes inside and you rise up. When it's gone, the gravitational pull of the world draws you down, and it draws not just your body, but also your mind down.
Right. On a real practical note, it's like, I think even people who don't know Scripture and don't know Christianity whatsoever, I think they know that the more they reject the spiritual, the more they reject their Creator, the more animalistic they become, like more like the animals.
Yeah.
Wild out, mating with whatever, doing whatever, completely, like the idea of even sort of like an organized family or society begins to collapse because the animal desires overrule. Like that animal part of the brain overrules the human part, which of course was created by God.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is something Christianity is true to our experience of the actual world. And I think because the opportunities for the gratification of the flesh have increased so much today, more and more people are realizing that actually Christianity was onto something when it speaks of our life in this way. At the beginning of Ephesians, we read of the recapitulation of heaven and earth in the person of Jesus Christ. He unites all things in him. And then near the end of Ephesians, we read about male and female reconciled, harmonized, and put in right order through the work of Jesus Christ and through the imaging of the divine bridegroom in the life of the particular human bridegroom.
This first episode is going to be free to all of you, and the rest will be for paid subscribers. Seraphim, thank you for preparing this Bible study through Ephesians. The Wise Phone 2, which I currently use as my phone. It's an amazing phone that helps you not doom scroll or be addicted to social media and other vices because it doesn't have a web browser, but it does function like a phone. You can call, you can text, you can take pictures, you can do videos. It even has apps like Uber and Lyft. You can order food, maps to get around town, all the things that you kind of need in this modern life. While at the same time being able to have a boundary between you and work or you and distractions. So you can be more present with your family, with your kids, with your spouse, whomever. This has been a very freeing experience for me to have the Wise Phone 2. Again, you can get $40 off through my discount code KING today.